Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I hope everybody sees my screen now, and I'll try to get through all my slides as quickly as possible. I'm not exactly a fan of presentation. I do prefer to do live demos, but I'm trying to do, since we're doing this webinar, I try to do most in the presentation in case everything goes wrong with the demo environment. But hi, my name's Aasne. I'm a senior architect in Crayon, now Software One, which is the merger happening this last couple of months. I'm also a Microsoft Copilot MVP and a Microsoft MCT. I've done Copilot readiness and just basically security adoption, everything within the sort of data environment security part for AI for the last 2.5, almost 3 years. I'm a co-author in the blog Agder in the Cloud, so feel free to go ahead and read that. We do write a little bit about both AI security, everything Microsoft basically. I've worked 20 years plus. I've stopped counting after a while with Microsoft and Microsoft software. I haven't worked within Microsoft, but within Microsoft environments. My focus is basically on Microsoft Purview and data governance. That's where my heart lies. That's where I've keep yelling on the top of my lungs to get everybody's attention. Seems that AI has brought everybody now on board finally, but that's where my heart lies. But I've also worked almost, well, I started counting, but I don't think I've worked with SharePoint since the birth of SharePoint 25 years ago, but I have rounded 23 years of SharePoint. So a little bit of experience I do have. Also, I do a lot of Teams, and basically, as I said, everything in the flow of information within Microsoft is basically where I've spent all my years. So today, I will most hopefully go through this type of agenda. This is basically why your data has no boundaries. So why do I say that? Why do I think that data has no boundaries? What seems to be the problem? And I'm going to hopefully help you spot where the issue lies, like spot the pattern. What have we done? Look at how we can discover where our data has gone and what the issues are. A little bit about automate classifications, like how you can set this going, make sure that your data is safe. A little bit of boundaries and how you can detox your environment to get it ready. As I said, it will be a PowerPoint heavy session, unfortunately, but we'll try to get a little bit of demos in it as well. I do we'll have time for questions after. So if you have anything, please just try to get it afterwards, and I'll try to get back to the point where you have, just in case I can't, when we're doing this, I can't see all the screens at the same time. So it's easier to do questions at the end. So the problem, why this is everyone's problem and nobody's fault. Basically, there's been a couple of years now with data going everywhere. We've had the shift from on-site to on-prem to on-site, not the other way around, hopefully. But what we've seen is that people have they've shared documents without knowing how they do it. Like you have somebody on HR shared a file or a folder with some manager trying to get him to read through this CV or application, and then they've forgot about that manager having access and then having more files within that folder, and people still have access. We have SharePoint sites that have been incorrectly set up wrong. We have team sites that the same happened to. Guests who are still there. We have still externals in our teams and we just forgot about it. And we have all the sensitive files in the wrong places. To make one example of that, I work in Norway. We have municipals in Norway who are like the public sector, and they have created teams over the years, and we have a lot of the municipals where users have created teams the wrong way, because when they created a team, they said the cream is public because they work in the public sector and the other option was private. So instead of, they haven't understood the difference between how the teams are operating within Microsoft 365 and just assumed, because there've been no training, and we all know how that goes when we have absolutely no user adoption, right? People just assume and then they create public teams instead of private teams. So we have municipals where we had to go through like 400 teams and move them over and shift the privacy to private instead of public. So this is the things we've seen along the way. Like the sharing culture has just been all over the place. If you go back to the like file share area where we had file shares everywhere, we had folder in folder in folder, and you just copied folders into another folder, or you copied it into your own department because you needed to have access to the same documents. And this was still a problem in the file shares, but now we have Teams, so it's so easy to send a link. Just look at this, or you send a link to a folder, you send a link to a SharePoint site, and just give access. Supposedly just temporary, but then again, it's shared forever. And the same goes like where you have OneDrive, you share from OneDrive, and you forgot that you share from OneDrive, and the sharing lives until the person you've shared with quit or you quit, basically. So you need to be aware of this. And this is, this has just been the way it is. It's just the way it's been set up. And people haven't been giving the right tools to understand how this works. Sorry. So how did we get there? Like, why did this actually happen? And we can look at basically most of it was because we did in 2020, there was a little pandemic, if somebody can remember that. Teams was deployed basically overnight. I did so many projects before COVID happened. So many projects where we talked to the organization about, we need to facilitate Microsoft 365. We need to start using SharePoint on Teams. We're not quite ready. We're looking at how we can implement it, and we need to make a plan now, right? And that was 2020, like March 2020, and then suddenly the pandemic hit, and everybody had to start using Teams. So everybody turned it on. They, like everybody else, got panicky and started using Teams and started uploading every document they had to it. They didn't understand how to create it. If you look at some of the legacy we have from that time, you still see Teams and SharePoint sites that have been created just because somebody needed to share one file, or they created a Teams just to have one meeting. So there's been a lot of things that we not necessarily had the time to tidy up in. So people still have all those teams and they're running out of space and haven't done that cleanup they should have. And they've been created sites and channels and libraries, and then you have the settings there. You created the teams, you gave people access, you didn't think of maybe you just can use the same team for the next team as well, because you don't need a new team every time you need to share something new. You forgot about all the different settings. You forgot about all the permissions there. You added someone because someone needed access to that site, and now we have 500 different people and 40 different access groups on one site. So, cleaning up this and trying to get that sort of overview on how things should actually be is quite daunting when you start looking at it. And it's worked, right? People have figured it out. A new employee comes along and you just need access. I'll give you access, and then you add one person because you're a site owner or you're a team owner, and you add that one person. And then suddenly we get Copilot. And Copilot basically, as you probably know by now, it just goes through everything you have access to. It will read everything you have access to. It will treat everything you have access to as it's your own, as it should. But then again, it will find things you didn't know you had access to. So that's the big problem here. How should we now manage to do this? Because what's the issue with this? What's the issue with having access to documents like you shouldn't have? What can go wrong, basically? And I do have a couple of examples about what's gone wrong. I do love my gremlins, by the way. Gremlins are in my demo environment. They are all over the place, so I tend to use them all the time when I do demos. But the big issue, and we've seen this, we've done demos with people, we worked in people's organizations, different environments. We've seen what Copilot can uncover. And one of the things we did see was a spreadsheet, a HR spreadsheet with salaries in it. It was sent to different people for read through. Obviously, there's some things that need to be done at times. The problem was that it was shared with anyone with the access, with anyone in the organization access, instead of every set certain people. So basically, everybody could see that, and everybody did see that spreadsheet with salaries. So this is so easy to see when you start using AI. If you go into Copilot and say, yeah, I need to see everything that's got salary in it, or I need to see everything that's got sick leave on it and stuff like that, and you will find everything you have access to with that type of wording in it. So it can be really scary, right? If we go and have a look at this. So again, we need to make sure that we have this under control. You also had acquisitions that's gone wrong because people have uploaded and shared a SharePoint link a bit too broadly. So the customers or the partners that shouldn't have access to the acquisition papers got them, and yeah, things went down south from that. So again, it's not, you might think that it's not a problem with oversharing or the wrong type of sharing, but it really, really is when you start doing that, because I can find everything that my colleagues have shared with me. I can find stuff that customers have shared with me as long as they're shared with me. And my account, my username and password, like my ID, is my security as well. It's what gives me access everywhere. So your identity is always the one that's going to give you the information and access to everything you have. So as long as it's shared with your identity, you're going to find it. And the same goes with everything you send. So make sure that you do it right and you do it, for a set time of amount when you share. So this is to make you a bit uncomfortable. This is to make you worry a little bit about what you've shared earlier. So now we can try maybe and look at what we can do to fix it, hopefully. So how can we spot the different patterns within this? What can we look at to find the reason why things went wrong? How can we find it on our tenant, basically? So you have seen everyone except external, like everyone in the organization, share links. Really shouldn't be there. You should never, ever, 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 again, ever, ever, have everyone except external. You should have either security groups, like you should use security groups with Entra, and or share with them, or you should share with people, like real people. Have it set to just share with people, and have external links with no expiry date. I usually recommend my customers or people I talk to use external sharing links with a minimum of or maximum 30 days of expiry, because usually we don't need it longer than that. And if you need it longer than that, you should really have a team with the externals you share with, so you have more control over everything that's shared. Like look at everything that's orphaned, like sites and teams that are orphaned. Really important to look at those, because that's a potential for a lot of things that's gone wrong, because you have probably guests there. Had one customer looked at the team. The team was now still alive with externals using it. It was no one internally in that team anymore. And the externals had used it for a year after the externals went away for the information there. So again, look at everything you've got with externals and guests. And yeah, as I said, guest accounts without review. You need to do a review for all your guests. You really need to have everything you can protected, so you make sure that you don't have guests longer than you should. So where do we go look for this? We have SharePoint Admin Center. SharePoint Admin Center is with the SharePoint Advanced Management now. Do have a lot of reports in it. You got lifecycle reports, you got ownership reports, you also got broken inheritance reports, and so on. So you can use that, and I'll show it in my demo afterwards. But you can go in there and look at everything you have there to make sure that you can govern your sites, basically. Purview. You can go to Purview to look at Content Explorer. Obviously, all my images, disclaimer, all my images are obviously made by AI. So sorry for everything that might look wrong, but we do need to use AI when we first have it. But we can go to Purview to look at the Content Explorer to see how many sensitive data you potentially have around your environment. Look at which type of SharePoint sites are the ones, the worst ones. You can get it listed there, which are the worst ones when it comes to that type of data. And you can also go to Entra to look at access reviews and have guest reviews there, set up that. So all of this we can go look at to make sure that we have a bit more control. And this is a couple of best practice features I can show you as well. I'm going to run through the Content Explorer a little bit more, and then we'll go to a demo, hopefully, if the demo gremlins are kind with me. So in Advanced Discovery, we can look at where we have the most sort of hotspots for sensitive data. Where are we located? Is it one particular OneDrive? Is it one particular person with their Outlook? Where is the worst possible ways where we share data that should be protected? So we go into Purview and we'll look at Content Explorer. We can also look at Activity Explorer. But Content Explorer is basically the best one to look at what type of data we do have. So we can make sure that we have look at sensitive info types. For example, we can look at credit card numbers, diseases, and all that to make sure that we find all the data that we have. Activity Explorer is more like if somebody changed labels, deleted everything from a SharePoint site, or shared massive amounts of data. So it's a bit different, but we can still look at content and we can look at activity. So we can also filter it by different types of labels. If you set up information protection labels, you can see if a certain SharePoint site have massive amounts of internal data when it should have been highly classified as, top secret. But you can look at the different types you have there. I think we can do one more of these before we jump into the demo, because we do have the data, Purview data map, where we can look at SharePoint and OneDrive, and you can potentially, if you have information protection add-on, you can add that into if you still have file shares. I won't judge because I know people still have them, but if you have them, you can have information protection add-on running on that file share server to make sure that you have labels on those files as well. And if you have the right set of licenses, and I do know that you need E5 Purview Suite or the new E7 to make sure that you have labels with automatic labeling towards sensitive info types and so on. So you would need that. I'm sorry to say that it's a bit more difficult and expensive towards that, but again, you protect your data, so it should be for everybody. So can everybody please just help me pray, sacrifice a little bit to the demo gods so we can see if we're able to share my demo. And as everything that's fun, you just need to switch a little bit between things. I love doing this live. Always up for expectations, but you need to do live demos. It's boring otherwise. So right now you should see my environment. Good. I'm sorry to say that this is not easy to get in the right setting, but we're into Microsoft Purview. If you need admin rights. You can have compliance administrator to go use Purview. Right now, because I'm showing everything, I have global admin on this. Obviously, I have with PIM, so I'm a little bit safe. But when you go into Purview, you can go into the solution called information protection. So we have information protection down here, and information protection is basically your baseline for everything security when it comes to data. So information protection is what gives you sensitivity labels. and it's what gives you the sensitive info types. So that's a starting point when it comes to classifying data. If you don't have sensitivity labels, if you don't have sensitive info types, everything else becomes difficult. So this is your starting point, right? This is where you start. So you go in here and you set up sensitivity labels. And a couple of weeks ago, I visited with a company, and we talked about sensitivity labels. And what they explained, that they had done this project at one time, so they had tried, and it was so difficult, and it was they just got so overwhelmed that they just quit the project. Just said, we can't do this, because they figured out that it needed 120 different labels. And I'm like, I think that might be overkill. I think that might be a tad bit overkill. I think start simple. You do as you do with the elephant. You eat it one piece at a time. You start simple, create simple labels. You can use like this. You can have public for all information that's public, that all information that can be found on a street corner, basically, without hurting the company. You can have general information that's relevant to inside a company. It could be internal as well, general, internal, some kind of way there. And you can have restricted content that is restricted to a certain set of either teams, people, whatever. You can also share that externally, but you need to choose who you share with. And you can have confidential, right? Confidential is a bit more stricter than restricted because it's highly confidential and it would hurt the company if it falls out somewhere. But you can have these labels, and when you have them, and when you do set labels on files, Copilot will respect them. So Copilot will also respect if you use, for example, confidential on a file, that's the highest, or in case here, top secret, because we always need something top secret. But if you use top secret towards a document and you try to use Copilot on it, Copilot will tell you, no, sorry, I'm not allowed to interact with this type of information. Right? So AI will respect that. And you can also set up so you can't upload top secret or confidential to any other type of AI as well. So you have protection there, so you can't use that information with other types of, or Copilot AI, who cares, something there. And the same goes with the settings you do. If you do top secret and says that it's just a certain amount of people, this group of people who are allowed to see top secret, then somebody can try to send a top secret to somebody outside that group, and that person won't be able to open the document. It will just be told that you're not allowed due to security settings. So you restrict the content, you make sure that only the right people can see it. And you can also set sensitivity labels on Teams or on SharePoint sites. You can also set them on meetings, actually. So if you do have one-to-one meetings, HR have meetings and stuff like that, you can set the label on a meeting as well. So make sure that nobody else can see the content or get access to the things inside the meeting. But this is just a start, right? Because you have labels, but at times you need also have classifiers. And classifiers like labels, people classify the documents themselves. So I can say that this document, okay, this is restricted with external access because I need to send it to a customer. But that's fine, people, we trust people, right? Or do we? Do we really trust end users to do the right thing at times? Maybe not. So what we need to do is we need to have sensitive info types, or we need to have trainable classifiers, or some sort of classifiers that will recognize the content and automatically set the right label. So if I do sensitive info types, I can say that I have this sensitive info type. For example, sorry to say, built-in Microsoft sensitive info types are not always correct. Because they tend to be a bit hypersensitive. So you usually make your own. I did try to find the ones I have. I have something called Project Nick. So Nick is a conference we have had internally, but it's secret, so we can't talk about it. Everything we do there can't be shared until the conference is, right? So what we can do, we have a classifier that's called Project Nick. And what that does is it recognizes keywords like Nick, and detect supporting patterns within the document. So everything that you type in that's Nick will automatically be classified with a label. So when the system recognizes the word Nick, it says this content is classified, so it will automatically label it. That's what sensitive info types does. So you can basically find key elements within documents or chats or Outlook, for example, for emails. It will find that content and then will automatically label it to whatever you set it should be. So that's what sensitive info types does. So we need sensitive info types to automatically detect the right files and automatically classify them with the right label. And when we've done that, when we get all the files labeled in the right way, then we can have the more automatic settings on it. Then we can run DLPs like data loss prevention. We can do retention policies. We can do all those things that actually protects our data without us thinking. Because again, if we're going to do sensitivity labels and our end users are going to think about sensitivity labels and add the right ones themselves, it usually goes wrong at one point or another, because end users will just, oh, this is just general. This is just general, and everything end up general. So we need the labels, and we need sensitive info types, or at least classifiers. Trainable classifiers is also if you have certain sets of data that you recognize as business critical data, you can upload content that is that particular data. So we will train on it and then recognize that type of data as sensitive, or the label you set on it. So it's if you have agreements that looks in a certain way, you can upload a folder with all those type of reports or content and agreements in, and then we'll recognize it when you upload or use a new one on SharePoint site. It will recognize it as that type of data and then set it. So you have lots of good things you can do with this. And when we have sensitive info types and we do have labels on, we get Data Explorer and Content Explorer underneath Explorers in information protection. Right now, I'm just going to use Data Explorer and Activity Explorer. To see everything within Content Explorer and Activity Explorer, you need two roles in Microsoft Purview. Not the admin roles, but you need roles that are set directly in Purview with a global admin account. So you need Content Explorer and Content List Viewer to see the details of this. Because with just a global admin, I can just see here and see sensitive info types. So I can write Nick, for example, project Nick, and I could click on Nick and I would see the different places project Nick was located. But I wouldn't be able to drill down. But what I can do with these roles I have now, I can click on Exchange and wait a little bit. Obviously, doing demos, things will be a bit slow at times. But you can click down and see, all right, it's Aasne Jen and Per Torben who's got a couple of items. So I can click on my exchange again, click on Aasne's exchange, and then look at the items. So here it says, okay, driving to Oslo, Nick, day one, look at last year. So there's a bit of different things. So I can actually look at the different items and see what they're talking about. So here's a document. So that's it. I have a document here with Nick in it. So this is what I can see. I can also click on the document and open that further. So you have a really detailed view on what you can find with these type of classifiers. Also a big note here, this is extremely possibilities of sensitive data, and you actually see people's both Outlook, you can see Teams chat, you can see OneDrive and stuff. So it's not somewhere you go just for fun, right? You need a reason to go there. It's easy enough to look at the overview when you have all locations like this. And you can go to, for example, SharePoint and look at the SharePoint site, which says SharePoint site has enough information. But going down to people's Outlook and OneDrive, that's a bit more gray, black area. So be aware of that. before you start digging in. But this makes it possible for me to look at, okay, Project Gremlin's SharePoint site do have a lot of information. So maybe we should look at how we can classify and do or change the rights on this particular site. So we can make sure that this site is more secure than other sites, for example. So it gives me an overview of how bad things are, where I can find the most critical data, sort of, and then do something about it. So that's the Data Explorer and Content Explorer. This Content Explorer is changing more to Data Explorer. That's why I have the two of them here. And we have Activity Explorer, and that will show you what's been done lately. This is a demo environment, so I don't have a lot of activities the past week, but we can look at how it's been done. You can see here, you have a label applied. You can go in and see when things have changed, if people have changed labels, removed files, or like now, what type of data have we used with Copilot, for example. So Activity Explorer will give you a bit more rights. Again, be aware you can see a lot of content towards the user. So there's a privacy issue if you go too deep on that. But obviously, if you have a case, if somebody said that somebody deleted a lot of content or overshared something from a SharePoint site or a team site, you have a reason to go and have a look at it. But you don't go there in this particular view just for fun, right? Because it's a lot of privacy concerns towards what you see, especially here in Norway. We have GDPR responsible people who turn gray when I talk about this. But yeah, be aware. Sorry. So this was information protection, and this was this is the baseline. Get everything right here. Do information protection, do the sensitivity labels and sensitive info types, and then you have everything else you need for the rest of it. But I'm also gonna show let's see, I had my SharePoint open there before, so I just need to click it again. We need to go to SharePoint Advanced Management. And right now with the E5 and E7 and things that are going on with those licenses, I'm not sure if it's going to change at any moment because sometimes the licensing changed a little bit. But we have SharePoint Advanced Management when you have Copilot licenses, or you can buy an add-on. So if I have a Copilot license, you'll get SharePoint Advanced Management. You as an admin user don't need to have the Copilot license, but somebody in your company or organization needs to have a SharePoint license. Sorry, Copilot license. But you get access to Advanced Management. It's right here in the middle with a little diamond. And then you have policies as well underneath where you can look at sharing and access control. First of all, we can just have a look at sharing and never have ever have anyone. Don't share with anyone. Try to have at least new and existing guests. If you use existing guests on this, if you have new guests, they won't be able to share them. Like if you want to share them with somebody you never shared with before, you have to set up a connection with them before you can share. So it's easier with new and existing guests. Just make sure to access reviews. I would also suggest to have guest access to a site or OneDrive will expire after 30 days. If you're a guest in a team, this setting don't apply. So it's only if you have share a SharePoint site without a team, or you share files. So I usually do that just to make sure that I do this correctly. Also, I have at some places recommended to allow users in specific security groups to share externally. Again, that's because there's been some users that's been oversharing a lot, so it depends on where we're at. And choose the type of link that you selected by default. I always have specific people. I also have view. I do hate it when I get view access, but it makes people more aware of what they're doing, so they change it to edit. Just do a little bit of those type of settings to make sure that you do have it most secure. And you see that Copilot is everywhere. you have analyze on everything now, so you can do Copilot within sites to make sure that you do everything correctly. You also have lifecycle management on both policies and on the advanced management. If you have never done lifecycle policies before, go to advanced management, do assessment, prepare for Copilot, run assessment. You will find all your inactive sites, all your sites without ownership, and it does team sites as well, so you can sort through it. But this, it gives you, and this will give you nightmares, sites that require attention, broken permission inheritance, org wide site permissions, and anyone sharing links. This is a demo environment that's never used for sharing. So we still have broken inheritance and org-wide permissions. So that's quite funny. We managed to do that, but you do have a lot of things you get a report on here. So you have, for example, broken permission. You can go and see what sites are ruined with the inheritance and make sure that you correct it. So when you correct that, or you see if there's any, you could do it in a security group or some other way to do the permissions to make sure that you have better control of it. So these SharePoint Advanced Management are really good to get control over your sites again, because we had a lack of like inactive sites. The active sites itself, when you try to look at that and export a report from all the sites, and you can look at last activity, it's been a little bit not correctly at all times. So doing this is more correct, and I never found a site that hasn't been inactive on this report. And you can set up after you've done that, you can set up a lifecycle management policy and give all the owners a message saying that, yeah, I see this site is inactive. Do you want to still keep it? Do you want to delete it? Do whatever. Like you can say that they need to copy the content to the sites they need to have it on, or something like that. So you can give them send them an email that actually makes sense as well. So when you set up lifecycle policies, you create them with text yourself. So it's quite good. Absolutely do this. I'm looking at my time. I can talk forever on this particular topic, but just need to be sure that I'm on time as well. But yeah, do have a look at all these to make sure that you get a good climate of your environment, and you should be really good. Like the last one, demo services here. We have on ID governance, there's a dashboard. By the way, this dashboard has been really good because it also gives you guest users in your account where you can view inactive guests. So this is workflows you have already here. So you can view inactive guests, and you can make sure that they're either kept inside or kicked out. So you see here you have 90 days without sign-in and stuff like that, so you can kick them out. Also on this, might have done it. Yeah, you have it there. You have permanent global administrator assignments, and you want to reduce those. Right now, I only have break glass accounts, so I'm not going to do anything about those. But if you had like global admins that were just global admins, you can mark them. You can make them eligible for PIM and just do that in one go. So instead of having 10, 12, 15, 20, I've seen the terrible 50 global admins, you could do them as PIM instead. Make sure that you have that covered. And you can also create access reviews for this from this particular page. So you have all the possibilities here to do all the access packages here. You can do reviews, and you can have owners of team doing their own access review for the guests. You can create access packages as well if you need that. Like we tend to take over other roles at times. Like we're doing somebody else's work for a little bit because we sub for them at times. So we can do access packages as well. So let me just skip to my last slides so I don't fall entirely behind on my time. But yeah, that's easy quicks. There's lots of things you can do to make sure that you are good to go on everything security. So when we've done this, keep in mind like your users, they're not, I said, I don't mean to say that they're stupid, they just tend to forget because they work, they have stress, they do what they're told basically. So they need to have automation on because then they don't have to think. Right? They're not engineers, they don't need to think about this, they just need to do. And you need to use sensitive information types. They can recognize that for you. So you don't have to have false positives all the time. You don't have to have people trying to guess, right? Again, if you do the built-ins, they're going to give you a lot of false positives. So that's why we create our own. We need to create our own to make sure that they're business specific, that are combined with everything we need, and not having whatever 6 number digits Microsoft thinks are sensitive. Again, with the label taxonomy, keep it simple. There's a saying that's keep it simple, stupid. It is. Be very specific, highly confidential, general, public. So we like to use restricted because that just means there's a restricted set of people who have access. I would like that you never ever set a default label because users stop thinking then. If you have default label for internal, and I'm sorry to say we've had that in all the companies I worked with, we have a default label. It's like when you're an IT consultant working in a company that exists of IT consultants. We always have internal IT that doesn't do what we say they should do, but never set a default label because users just stop thinking. Everything gets just labeled internal. And then when they can't send a document out, you get support tickets back. There's also a setting on one of the strictest, like highly confidential or confidential. There's a possibility to make users decide access. That means that when they create a document, they choose who get access. What happens if that user quits? Nobody knows where that document lives, nobody sees that document, and nobody can access that document. Then you need to create with PowerShell a user group in like super user group on the backbones of it. And it's a mess. It's a mess. So never use that. Make sure that you make the labels correctly, that you constrict access to the different teams or SharePoint sites that are most confidential to make sure that you have everything covered there. So don't let user decide too much, basically. And do always simulate before you enforce. Everything you do, always try simulation before you set anything off, because it will at times go wrong, basically. So I'm not going to do another demo, but what we do need, when we've done the labels, we've done the sensitive info types, we need to have that all documents should be labeled. We need that to be mandatory in everything. We need DLP policies that enables, not blocks. I see a lot of IT people always block things. They tend to block everything instead of allowing, and it's easier to allow certain things than to block everything. And Entra people, Purview people, SharePoint people, everybody needs to talk together. We need to communicate so that we don't block everything, because one thing can block the other thing, and then we have everything blocked again. So everything should work together. Like conditional access can also be used towards labels. So if a person who works in HR suddenly is on holiday in Spain, you can't open sensitive data there, for example. So we can use everything of this all together. So if we now look at AI, right? Copilot, as I said, respects sensitivity labels. It respects access permissions. You also have personal contact mode, but I said that's always a band-aid. It's a band-aid to a very bleeding wound. So you can use it when you fix the problem as you go, right? So looking at what we need to do, you have to have clean, controlled data. You need to make sure that you do this for a long time. You need to make sure that you do this and it's scalable. So we need to discover, classify, govern, and enforce, basically. So when we've done all this, I think you should be mostly ready for AI. Obviously, you can't make users delete all their data. I wish we could, but they tend to hoard all the data anyway. So when you come to Monday morning, or Friday for that matter, open Content Explorer, run the SharePoint reports, review everything you got on labels, and try set up sensitive info types, and do schedule guest reviews to make sure that you have that ready. So that was me. I think I'm on time now. Feel free to join the blog, look at the blog, or look me up on LinkedIn. I saw that we can't share the PDFs after this webinar, but I'll publish it on my blog afterwards, so you can go look it up there. So, were there any questions?
Yeah, I think thank you first, and thank you for your insightful tips. And yeah, there is indeed a question in the chat regarding the possibility to warn users if they try to apply a label that I think it's meant that the label is in the opposite of the detected content of the document. Or
Yeah.
I hope I get this question right. Yeah.
Yeah, if you have sensitive info types, certainly. So if you have sensitive info types and a user think that this document should be internal or public, for that matter, it will recognize if you have credit card numbers. I'm just, easy to mention. If you have credit card numbers in that particular document, the sensitive info types and the policies will then kick in and say that, no, this can't be public because you have credit card numbers in it, and then we'll upgrade it for you, sort of. It depends on your settings, but you can also say that people are able to downgrade your label, but with a justification. Like, yeah, I need to send this because there's a payroll thing that needs to have it and the system is down, so I need to send it by email or something like that. So you can always have the users overrule everything you do, but they need a justification for it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there are no questions in the Q&A part, so
hopefully everything was so understandable that
I think it,
right.
it was a great session. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Fun to be a part of this. So this is awesome. It's the first time with the Copilot Community Conference, and absolutely brilliant that we get to do this. Absolutely fun.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, then thank you. And yeah, I posted your LinkedIn to the chat. So if someone from the audience will follow up or have any further questions, I think it's okay to connect with you, right? So yeah, then thank you and have a good day.
Thank you too. All right. Bye.